So I thought I'd show you these. This is the original version of Watch My Back, which I wrote in a factory where I was hired to sweep floors. When I open it up, see on the first page, it's not very clear there, but I wrote it in 1989. My whole reality, the reality I'm in now, and all the different realities I've been in, have come from this one book. And I wrote this book while I was working in a factory. I was hired to sweep floors. At night I worked as a doorman, as a bouncer. In the day I'd come in, talk to the other guys, and I'd tell them all about the stuff that happened the night before, the funny incidents, the serious incidents. I'd talk about the pathos, and just about this very colourful 1980s nightclub world. It was a fantastic, violent, funny, charismatic world. And when I wrote this book in these notepads with a biro, I created several realities which all came out of the point of a biro. So these realities came from my thoughts, my experiences, through my pen, through the point of the biro, so it came out of a portal as tiny as a dot and created my first book. At the time when I wrote this book, I didn't really believe I'd get it published, because people like me, people like us, do not publish books. That's what I was told. I know that's probably what a lot of you have been told as well, that only certain people can be successful, only certain people can be artists, only certain people can write books. Of course we realise that's nonsense, but if that's on the hard drive, if that's on what Freud called it the internal parent, and Yudhisthira from the Mahabharata, he called it the second self. If that's on the second self, if that's what we believe, that becomes our reality. What I realised from publishing this one book, and I like to show these pads because this is the reality of it. If you was with me now, you could feel it. You could actually feel the reality of these notepads. But what I like to do with this is I like to show people that you can change your reality. You can change it for a new reality, for a better reality, for a bigger reality, for a brighter reality, for a more adventurous reality. You can change it. But if you want to change the reality that you see out there, you need to change the reality that's in you. And when I wrote this first book, that's exactly what I did. And the way we do that is we look at the internal parent, or that kind of, I think Freud called it the superego, or the second self. That's how we reflect our reality. We need to look at that, and we need to expand it. So where there are limiting beliefs, and where there is small thinking, where there are fears and limitations, we need to expand them. So if we've got a small lens that represents our reality, we need to make that bigger and bigger. We need to make it brighter and brighter. And that's the whole idea of this sovereignty course, the course that I'm holding now. It's kind of an extension from the masterclass and from the black belt course, but we're going specifically into the metaphysics, where we're saying to people, your reality is limited to your internal parent. So if you have very, very strong held beliefs that that there is an us and them, and that that you need handouts from the government, and that you need assistance, and that only certain people can succeed, and that some things are impossible. If you have those beliefs, it's unlikely that you'll ever create anything outside of that. So what we want to do on this course is we want to take those beliefs, we want to show you that it's like data on a hard drive. We want to dissolve the old beliefs and expand into new beliefs. And through the point of a pen, or through this point in us, we can start to create whatever reality we want. I'm not saying this is an easy task. This course isn't an easy course, but I'm presuming that the people that come on this want challenge, and they want to create something exciting. They want to go on their hero's journey. What I've learnt from 40 years of teaching, from 40 years in the martial arts, from 40 years of creating new realities, what I've learnt is that the way to change what is out in front of you is to change what's inside you. And that can be done. People think it can't be done, people think it's not possible, but of course it can. So if we've got this access at the moment to an infinite amount of energy. It's out there. The religious books tell us it's there. Science tells us it's there. Our intuition tells us specifically that it's there. But of course it's coming through this very narrow lens, this discoloured, this distorted lens, which we call the internal parent or the second self. So the whole course really is about expanding the second self, about educating the second self, about introducing people to separate parts of their personality or separate personalities that are holding them back, so that they can dissolve or re-educate and reintegrate those other parts of them, bring them back into the whole and become bigger, better, brighter, stronger, more powerful. It's all about sovereignty over the self and expansion of the self. And that's what's exciting about this. And I'm not a man that's going to be working from books or from theory. I'm a person that has taken this knowledge, and before I had this knowledge, I was 30 years old, working in factories, and afraid of life really. Well, I guess that was more kind of my mid-20s. I was afraid of life. I knew I could access more, I knew there was more out there, but for some reason I wasn't doing it. I was too afraid of my own potential. And it's because every time I went to move forward, this internal parent, this second self said to me, it's too scary out there, it's too frightening out there, and don't forget that people like us do not succeed. People like us don't do this. That's what this part of me kept saying. And I reached a point in my life where this creative energy that wanted to come out, that wasn't finding an outlet, was becoming root bound, and it was creating lots of anxiety and depression in my life. So I decided, after a particularly bad depression, that I was going to go out into the world and I was going to prove this stuff wrong. I was going to go out and prove that I could be anything, that I could achieve anything. And I did that by writing down all of my fears on a fear pyramid, which is one of the things we'll be doing on the course. And the least fear at the bottom and the worst fear at the top, and I systematically flooded myself with these fears. I kind of faced them down one by one with specific techniques. I got desensitization to them. I developed what they call in psychology hardiness, and the hardiness enabled me to go out and create pretty much any reality I wanted to create. And I'm not saying that flippantly. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm saying, it was difficult, but of course it has to be difficult. We don't develop character, we don't develop charisma, we don't develop colour by having comfort. Again, one of the premises of this course is that there is no growth in comfort, but if we can learn to embrace discomfort and change our perception of discomfort, then discomfort can become comfortable. So for me, this was about going out, confronting my fears, overcoming my fears, which eventually led me to working on a nightclub door in Coventry, where my whole reality changed. That led me to writing this first book, which was called Watch My Back. And when I got that book published, my whole world changed. As soon as I got this published, of course, I realised that I've been told for the last 30 years that the stuff I've been told for the last 30 years, that people like us can't write books, people like us won't be published, people like us aren't worthy. I realised that was a lie. And the moment I saw that was a lie, I remember thinking, so if that's a lie, what else is a lie? There must be lots of other stuff out there that's a lie. And of course there was. Pretty much everything I'd learned up to that point was at least a limiting truth. Some of it was, put in place to protect me. Some of it was put in place by people who also had limited thinking. Some of it was put in place by people who were afraid of me expanding, who were afraid of me growing. And most of it was put in place just by people that were ignorant. It wasn't something that they meant to do. But I was held into that. I was held in that reality, the factual reality, by lots of people who I can't even remember their names now. Lots of people who love me, by a whole society. And for me to change, for me to go from being a guy that worked in a factory to becoming a published author, to becoming a martial arts teacher, to becoming a Sunday Times bestseller, to becoming a BAFTA winning writer, to becoming a playwright, all of these different realities, I had to change identity. It wasn't just about changing jobs, I had to change identity. And I changed identity by expanding my second self. That's what I want to concentrate on this course. It will be specifically about helping you, if you join us, to change your second self, to expand your second self. And this is very exciting because this stuff works. I mean, I'm not, you know, like I said, I'm not about theory. The stuff I do has never been about theory. For me, either works or there's no point in having it. This stuff's worked for me on nightclub doors where people threatened to kill me, and some of my friends were murdered. It's worked for me in very pragmatic terms with the writing, expanding my second self. What stopped me from being a great writer wasn't the fact, you know, that I couldn't write. It was the fact that I didn't believe I could write. And by expanding my second self through these specific techniques, I was able to become not just a good writer, but you know, someone that has written for the Times, someone that's written for the Royal Court. I was in the Royal Court Writers Group. Someone that has been in the Sunday Times bestsellers. Someone that has, you know, written a £2 million feature film. Someone that's written multiple, you know, award-winning films. And again, I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying what I teach on this course, what I teach wherever I go, is stuff that works. It's very pragmatic. It's a bit uncomfortable, but in a good way, and you'll see what I mean when you come and do the course, because it's about changing perception. And what it helps you to do is to identify your natural bias, where you're really strong. It enables you to identify what Geoff would call your true will, what it is you were put on this planet to do. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in helping you to find your true will. And then once you've found your true will, it's like you're planting seeds in fertile soil all the time. So there's lots of things we're going to do throughout the 6 months, you know, everything to do with identifying the sub-personalities, reintroducing them back into the whole, expanding the second self, making room for our authentic identity, identifying that and making room for it. So we can start to get rid of excuse making, we start to get rid of blame, which disempowers us. We do lots of specific techniques on connecting to logos, and this comes from Viktor Frankl, who developed a system called logotherapy. And logotherapy is all about finding purpose, or finding logos, or finding God, or finding the kingdom of heaven, or finding the Akashic. It's about connecting to our power source, nothing less than that. And if we can connect to logos, then everything in our reality suddenly changes. So we will be doing techniques specifically on realigning people so that they can connect to logos, they can identify and connect to purpose. And once you've got that identification, then it's about maintaining that identification. What they say is, and what I've learned is that sovereignty over the self is more powerful than sovereignty over 10,000 armies. And that's so true. If you haven't got sovereignty over yourself, you haven't got sovereignty over anything. Lots of people want to change the world, but they still can't change their socks once a day. Lots of people, you know, want to go out and fight the big fight, but they can't deal with things on their doorstep. So this is about identifying where, you know, identifying like a power base, which is sovereignty over the self, expanding the second self. So this comes through. First it comes through intellectual expansion, then it comes through visual expansion where we see the expansion, and then it comes through actual expansion where we go out and do it. An example of that would be intellectually, I didn't believe I could be a published author. So I read some books about other people like me from working class backgrounds who had become authors. So intellectually I expanded my second self, I expanded that belief. So suddenly I knew it could be done. Then I started to visualise myself as a published author. Once I started to visualise myself as a published author, then the second self expanded visually. So the unconscious mind doesn't really distinguish between what we imagine very strongly and what we actually experience. The third and final expansion of the second self was to go out and actually publish the book. And the first version of that was this. That was the very first version. When I did the third expansion, which is the expansion proper, that my reality changed. Suddenly, it wasn't intellectual or visionary knowledge; it was true knowledge. I knew people like me could publish a book. I knew it, and once I opened the portal to publish this one book, this first book. It created a pipeline for the next 40 books, for the next 10 films, for the next, I don't know, thousands of articles, for the next hundreds of talks, for the next, dozen realities that I created. Because once I recognised that my reality could change if I expanded the second self, once I realised that was true, I started to create pipelines and new realities, in all different areas. And what I like about me, obviously I enjoy my life, I enjoy being me, but what I like about me is that I'm an ordinary person, the same as you. I know I'm ordinary, I'm not embarrassed by that. I'm excited about the fact that an ordinary person who had no specific education, who left school without qualifications, and worked in factories and shops until I was in my 30s, has gone on to sit at the BAFTAs, gone on to win awards around the world, gone on to be on the world stage at martial arts, and to do all these wonderful things. I know I could do. I know I've done that, and I've done it with these specific techniques. If I can do it as an ordinary person, then of course you can do it. Anybody can do it. But it's identifying where you're at your best, where your natural bias, where you should be planting the seeds, where it will be most fertile. That's what this course is all about. So it's held at Coombe Abbey, which is absolutely beautiful. It is a first-class hotel. It's held in 500 acres of forest. It used to be a monastery, so it has a great spiritual presence. It will be a small amount of people. It will be concentrated. It will be very informal. I like all my things to be very informal. It will have a structure, but it will be very spontaneous. And I guarantee that by the end of the course, you will have changed, your life will have changed, and it will have changed for the better. I hope you join us.